From the Ho Ho Homestead Studios in Santa Clarita, California, it's just the Tip-Sters with Melissa Morgan.
Nespresso.
If you've got a tip for Melissa, the holiday carol you believe has a secret message. What's buried under the Christmas tree in the town square? How to avoid one more goddamn year watching It's a Wonderful Life with your weepy grandma. Anything, tell us about it by calling the Tipster hotline at 832-TIPSTER. That's 832-847-7837 or send an email to jttipsters@gmail.com. And now here's your host, getting excited about Christmas dinner and trying to figure out how to put oat milk in every part of it, including the ham, Melissa Morgan.
More cowbell. I am not. I only put it in tea and coffee.
Yeah, sure.
It's unsweetened vanilla oat milk, and it's good. And it's not because I want to drink oat milk. It's because I want to use less calories, and I love milk and dairy and all that shit.
Yeah, well, you seem to like oat milk.
I do.
Oat milk to a degree that is kind of...
Oh, fuck off. It's just in beverages. I don't put it on ham.
It's a little manic.
Mark Humphreys.
I saw she got a little injection thing. She's going to inject it into the ham.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Number one, it's called a syringe. Number two, no.
Okay.
You are nuts, man.
I can just see it now. But it'll be nice and juicy. The ham will be nice and juicy.
There's more wrong with you than we have time to discuss right now. You're messed up.
I got nothing really against oat milk. I don't
either. I don't really have that much for it, except that when I'm not a big coffee drinker, and
no, I know.
Trying to drink, coffee at home as opposed to going out because, the world is on fire and we can't go outside and It's depressing. And now when I said Nespresso at the beginning, Mark was gifted a Nespresso like Volturo or something.
It's
Vulture
really
Duo.
Nice.
I don't know. It's really exquisite. And we are Keurig people. Always have been. And now we're kind of cleaning out the little area in the butler's pantry, and we're calling that the coffee bar because we're keeping our Keurig is on its last leg, and perhaps Santa is bringing a new Keurig into the home.
Perhaps.
And then the new Keurig and the new Nespresso are going to live side by side. Hopefully we won't come down and there's like the Jets and the whatever fight with knives.
They'll have a coffee maker fight.
They're like...
Yeah, right.
Yeah, a lot of finger snapping and knives clicking, all that kind of shit.
Oh my God.
Yeah. I just tried to snap my finger in my left hand. That didn't work. It's almost healed. It's almost good, Tipsters. I still can't exactly flip people off, but as my friend, actually Mark's coworker, Richard, who's my friend now, said, people are going to get it. So yes, even if I flip them off with a 15-degree bent middle finger, it'll be fine.
Yeah, but it won't be. It's healing nicely. It looks really
let's
good.
Hope so. Yeah. It's still got a weird ass gash in my heart line, but it's itching, and so that's all good.
There's a good lyric. There's a weird ass gash
in my heart line.
Yeah.
I might just accidentally cut the cords to your microphone. I'm not sure if that is a thing I can do, but I have something sharp. So, new Nespresso. George Clooney delivered it. He didn't really, but it's pretty cool. I'm looking forward to figuring out how to use that because the Keurig is just so like, Keurig is like a coffee maker for the people who need like helmets, so they don't hurt themselves.
Now wait a minute. And I like the Keurig.
I do too, but it's simplistic. The Nespresso is a little bit more people who majored in biochemistry.
Yes, it's very European.
It's very European, as Mark says.
Very snobby.
Little bit of that, little bit snobbish, little bit of snobby. So I have a large list of people to thank, and I keep forgetting, and then the list gets longer. So we have some wonderful new, and I'm sure I'm forgetting someone, but we have some wonderful new YouTube subscribers: Tipster Lori, Tipster Diana, Tipster Crystal, Tipster Mimi, Tipster Marie, and I know there was a gentleman's name, and I forgot. And I can't find him, but we have a lovely group of new YouTube subscribers, which I don't get you kids in your YouTubes, but in your Tubi tubes. But it's just our logo and the episode.
But it's great to have you.
Yes, it's wonderful to have you. And we really need to say a special thank you to Tip-Sters, Ann and Richard, who, if you are uncomfortable using Patreon, it's not exactly user-friendly. It's weird, but we are so grateful for all the support that this podcast gets. There's no us without you. But Tip-Sters, Ann and Richard made a, donation in the name of Just the Tip-Sters to one of our favorite places ever, which is Pause for Life Canine, which is where we got our amazing and wonderful and awful baby girl, Siren. And we couldn't love Pause for Life anymore. They're just such a phenomenal organization that, the letter that we got saying there was a donation made in the name of Just the Tip-Sters is so beautiful. And it's like, look, we are just in the business of trying to help change lives. We change the lives of the dogs and the lives of the people that train them, and they're right. And the program has, garnered over 20 men now who have had their sentences shortened or even commuted, sometimes sentences that were ridiculous. 6 life sentences plus 40 years for 3 nonviolent, felony charges of fraud or burglary So we are very grateful to Ann and Richard for that beautiful donation. That's the nicest gift ever. And speaking of that, we are really grateful for those of you who take the time to rate and review and subscribe to the podcast. Really grateful if you could go to Apple Podcasts and leave a nice review if you have the time. And if you don't, a 5-star rating would be lovely. And a lot of people get angry when you say, please leave a 5-star rating. I don't care. I'd like a 5-star rating.
Every podcast out there says subscribe and leave a 5-star rating.
Yeah. And if you don't like the podcast, that's okay. There's so many others. Go find another one to listen to that you love and give them a 5-star review. But don't give us some shitty review because you don't like, my voice or the way I say, Detroit.
Yeah. Here's the thing that I don't understand about podcast reviews is that what's the point of leaving a negative review? It's like it's not like you're doing a consumer report,
right,
warning people to stay away from the dangerous electrical outlet that's going to fry your 5-year-old. You know what I mean? It's like, come on.
It's just your opinion. If you like it, that's great. And if you don't, keep that and move on to something else. So yeah, I don't want to spend a lot of time on that, but we're very grateful for those of you who have taken the time to rate and review us and subscribe. We appreciate that. And I do want to say also we have our Tipster hotline, and we got a great tip from Tipster Jennifer and we'll be covering that case in January, on our Tipster hotline, which is 832-847-7837. That's 832-847-7837, 832-Tipster. Is that correct?
That is correct. If you forget, just remember, all you have to remember is 832. Yeah.
Right, 832-Tipster. So really grateful for that too. So please know you can get us anyway. Email jttipsters@gmail.com. We have a Facebook page. We're on Twitter and Instagram. I'm not as adept at those like you kids are, because you kids are kids, and I'm like a crazy old crabby lady. So I wanted to say that this episode is unusual for me. I tend to stay away from cults, and I know that cults are a big deal to some people. There's many podcasts that they're actually focused only on cults, and I love and appreciate that, but it's just not anything I'm typically that interested in. What I am interested in are the people who are members of cults, because it's usually people that you think are smart and autonomous and wouldn't fall under a spell.
Isn't that weird?
It is. It's very interesting. I find most groups acquire what I like to call seekers. The people that I know that have been involved in something that is like, oh, this smells bad, are people that I respect greatly. They're typically very creative, artists, most of them, and seekers. And I just don't have it in me to be upset or angry at people that are seekers that belong to a specific group. What I do get upset at is when I can't be your friend or in your life unless I'm also in your group. I never thought of myself as a live and let live person. I really did not until I moved to Los Angeles and found so many people in so many groups. And I'm just going to have to call most of them cults, but being respectful, I'm going to say groups. And it seems like Los Angeles is a hotbed for these type of groups. Everyone's looking for something. Everyone wants to be something bigger or more than they think they are. And the truth is they are perfect the way they are. They think they need something more, something to help them, complete them, fill them out, give them a direction. And they really are usually just perfect the way they are. And they don't need, the extra icing. But who am I to say, don't keep looking for the extra icing or the sprinkles. Keep looking if that makes you happy. But don't tell me I have to look for your icing and your sprinkles too. That was the problem. When I moved here, my very first friend was a Scientologist. And she took me under her wing. She was quite a bit older than me. We were from the same area. I met her 6 weeks after I moved here. And I was fascinated by the fact that she was in Scientology. And it brought her, peace and direction. And I thought that was great. But things got bad when she wrote me a 14-page letter telling me how my life was going down the drain. All my relationships with men were damaged and ridiculous. This is someone who, by the way, had not been in a relationship for a very long time, but was giving me love advice. And that we couldn't be friends unless I started coming to classes with her. And I was very, very hurt. Our friendship was not predicated on a religious belief or a group belief or a hive mind. Our friendship was based on who we were as individuals. And I couldn't get past that. I wasn't going to join Scientology, and she wasn't going to not be in Scientology. Ironically, she is now not a Scientologist, and she is one of the loudest proclaimers of, the Leah Remini work that she has done, and it's heartbreaking. But I'm sure it's a journey in her life she wouldn't take back because it made her who she is today. But, I was raised in the Baptist church. Producer Mark is Catholic. I will tell you was Catholic. A lot of...
Thank you.
Sorry. A lot of people who join these groups come from these very strict organized religions. Maybe it's something in their DNA that reminds them of the structure. Maybe they missed it. Maybe they become sentimental and think they need something like that in their lives. And it's very heartbreaking because a lot of organized religions are strict in body, mind, and spirit. And if you are a manipulative fuckface, you use that to remind people of what can keep them in line. And this group I'd never heard of. It's embarrassing to think I'd never heard of it. It is called Buddhafield. And maybe I hadn't heard of it because it is relatively small. I'm not sure how they functioned with, between 100 and 200 members and kept financially alive. However, a lot of donated time, energy, a lot of the information that I'm going to tell you about today comes from a documentary filmed, not filmed, it was filmed over 20 years, edited and put together and shown at Sundance in 2016, 2017 maybe. And it's from CNN Films. And the filmmaker, Will Allen, had really unprecedented access to the underpinnings of how a cult begins, how it is fleshed out, and I'm going to just hope to hell at some point how it implodes. And I think he's working on, from the background, he's working on how to have that happen, because it really is uncomfortable. I don't want to say dangerous, but it can be. I don't know that anyone has died from this cult the way that there have been physical deaths from things like Scientology, probably from every group religion ever made. But, if you ignore your health or think that someone's going to magically fix you, as opposed to perhaps a combination of prayer and Western meds, it's difficult when it's adults. If it's kids, you need to go in. You need to go in with brute force, police action or federal government agencies cracking down. But when it's adults, it's more difficult. But when you are manipulative, call yourself a therapist, you have credentials that say you are a therapist, people tend to believe in you, maybe. If you are a hypnotherapist. And I really don't want to take away the responsibility of these group members, because they are all aware that they were complicit in their own downfall to this man. But he did have a lot of tools in his tool belt. I feel like the most important one is that he was an actor and he could act any way he wanted. So let's start with Buddhafield, which the documentary, by the way, is called Holy Hell. And you can get it on Amazon, and I believe it's also available on iTunes. I think we paid $4.99 for it. And it's hour and a half, something like that. And it isn't like a beautifully shot film, but what it is over 20 years, seeing these people grow up, basically. Most of them, in their late teens, early 20s, joined this group. This man who was born, I believe, in Ecuador, named Jaime Gomez, who, when they met him, was known as Michel Constant, I believe was his stage name. And he taught acting classes and hypnotherapy and, I guess to help you stop smoking or be more focused. He has a whole lot of certificates that I don't know if they're real. We can, hope they are. But I feel like more than anything, what he is a con man. And he's really good at it. And he doesn't inflate his group to large numbers because I feel like he can't control them. That's why it's so fascinating to see a group of 100, 120 people kind of taking care of every need. Every need was met for him. He had people who would follow him around with a chair strapped to their back, and when he wanted to sit down, they would take it off, and he would sit down like a throne.
Oh, for God's sake.
Like a throne.
This stuff. Okay.
Yeah. So Jaime Gomez is a failed actor. He wouldn't say that. He would say, here's my resume. Now, ironically, maybe he picked up some ideas on how to form a group from his very tiny, tiny role in Rosemary's Baby. Yeah.
No kidding.
No kidding.
Okay.
So that was the big calling card, is that, oh my God, he was in Rosemary's Baby. I'm going to take an acting class with him. We're talking the mid 80s, West Hollywood, California. It's people wanting to change and grow and a creative artist community. And here's this little man who was very handsome, by the way, until he bastardized his face with odd plastic surgery that he insisted his acolytes get before him so he could see how it would turn out. He, taught these, it started in an apartment in West Hollywood, teaching, acting classes, and not just acting classes, but acting classes with soul and heart and spirituality. And he would mix in some of the teachings of the Bhagavad Gita. They would practice yoga. And here's where I start to get, my ire gets up. I start to get pissed, because if you use yoga to attract people, you are a fucking motherfucker, because yoga is a 5,000-year-old tradition with no specific religion attached to it. Larger countries where it is practiced, you could be a Hindu, you could be a Buddhist, you could be Jewish, you could be Christian, but, it's thought of as an Eastern South Asian kind of thing. But yoga is yoga. It's not Catholic, or it's not one thing. It's all religions. It's not a spirituality. It's a way of life if you'd like to live that way. But it's moving your body and being grateful for your body and breathing. Yoga is breathing. You can sit on your mat and breathe, and that's yoga. If you can't do any of the poses, that's fine. And it's not that you can't. It's that at that moment, you're not doing them. If you want to do them, if you want to try, that's up to you. But you don't have to be a religion. You can be no religion or all religions and practice yoga. But when you use something like yoga to draw people in, and he really didn't. I mean, he did, but that was, he let's call it yoga light. At the end of, a conversation with someone, if they were leaving, he would say namaste and bow his head. But it's like, I don't even know if he knew what that meant. So he's this out of work actor who is teaching acting classes and holding group sessions in people's apartments. It's the way all cults start. So they start small.
Did he play like one of Ruth Gordon's group in Rosemary's Baby?
Here's what happens, Mark. He's in a group setting at a party, and he turns toward the camera. That's it.
Yeah, it's that. That's it. Yeah, I'm sure it's that scene where they are all sitting around Rosemary and bringing down Satan to have sex with her or whatever.
Yes,
while she's under the
the spell of the whatever they gave her, the drug they gave her to make her all weird
in the pudding or whatever. Yeah, right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and this is he's doing this in the 80s. You said.
Yeah. Yes.
So it's already like 15 years after Rosemary's Baby.
Yes.
And that's his resume.
Yes.
Okay. Flim Flam man.
There you go. And his name is Jaime Gomez, but he is Michel Constant.
Of course.
Michel, French. Now, his accent, when you hear him speak in the documentary, because you don't hear him speak in Rosemary's Baby, he just looks at the camera and it's almost like the look he gives the camera and they kind of slow it down and stop is a really bad telenovela. He looks like a really bad soap actor, like a soap opera actor. It's like a Desperate Housewives South America style or something. So it's bad. It's really bad. So he turns and looks at the camera and kind of he's got this very blank stare, which you could put down to the hypnotherapy, but it's a very odd stare. He looks you right in the eyes, but he is empty. He is empty. You look in his eyes, he looks you in the eyes, and it's kind of off-putting when someone does that. It can make you uncomfortable and feel kind of awkward. But when you look back, you see he's an empty vessel. He is really an empty vessel, but he's not brilliant, but smart enough to know what to say. He's no Einstein, but is smart enough to know what to say to make these young, creative seekers think they're hearing something for the first time.
Every grifter, I'm going to say most grifters are not really, book smart. They're not really smart people, but they have an instinct. Smart. They have an instinct about human nature that they know how to exploit.
That is absolutely the truth. There's such great information on Buddhafield. Again, I feel a little ignorant in that I didn't know about it until I saw something and was like, what the fuck is Buddhafield? That's the oddest name for a group. And then I was like, my mind wanders and I'm like Jesus Squad or Mohammed Crew or Yahweh Posse, or what the fuck is Buddhafield? And it's nebulous, like him. And there's such great information in Esquire and Vulture, in HuffPost, obviously on CNN, because the documentary is a CNN film. And that's when it really became, holy hell, solidified it for me, because I, found out more about it than I ever wanted to. So the documentarian, his name is Will Allen, and he was in the group for 22 years. He started in his early 20s, and he was this beautiful kid right out of film school. He was really beautiful. He's really beautiful now in his 50s. He's a beautiful man. That's the other thing about this group. Very rarely is anyone unattractive. I think Jaime Gomez, I'm just going to call him that, even though he had many names. The teacher, Andreas, we'll find out later. And now he goes by, I think it's Reyji, which means God King, but that's in Hawaii. That's something different. We'll get to that later. He recruited these beautiful, creative young people. I mean, they were all really beautiful. He wore a speedo, and
oh my God, this is just getting better and better.
Darling, it's going to get worse and worse, or in your mind, better and better. It's really uncomfortable. He was attractive to begin with as he's small, very Napoleonic man, very small man, but very well built. 6-pack abs, muscles. It walks around kind of stiff spined, slowly walking. But he had people who, drove him everywhere. And the way he gets in a car is, I've never seen anything like it. I guess maybe you learn it in, royalty school. He walks up to the door is opened for him. He turns to face outward and then sits down. And I was like, I wonder if he's doing that because of back pain, or is it's because it's a show? It's a show. But he's a ballet dancer. He's, I'm getting off track again. What I wanted to say was, Will Allen, after his 22 years of being in the group, says, there's statistics on why intelligent, creative people are taken in by con men. One is that they're in a transition in their life and they're looking for answers, the seekers. And the con men come off as very confident, like, you know what, I've got answers and I'll give them to you. Just follow me. And the other part is that there's this magical element. If you do this, you'll get this. This thing will happen. And that's very appealing to people who know that or feel that there's more going on in the world than we can see with just our eyes. Those are the people that are preyed upon in this kind of a group. And I mean, to call him an extra in a movie like Rosemary's Baby is almost giving him too much credit. He really was just a con man, as Mark says. And con men, I guess, are really good at this. And he promises so much. It's this, Will Allen came out of film school and went home, and his mom, he came out as gay, and his mom and dad were like, well, you have to live somewhere else. And his sister was already in Bootiefield, and she brought him in. And it's easy when you have a family member there, when you have someone who's with you to show you the way, to make you feel more comfortable, especially when you feel like you've been rejected from your family. And I don't want to say this was a group of rejects, because it really wasn't. It was a group of people who maybe had experienced, trauma in your life. The part that bothers me the most is that there were some, sexual assault victims who were re-traumatized by this fucker. Even though he, professes a drug-free, caffeine-free, sex-free life. He thinks that sex is a lower form of energy. And, everyone was supposed to be celibate. And of course, you have a group of young, beautiful people, gay or straight, all living together in a communal lifestyle. Eventually, they said the joke amongst them was that it was called Bootiefield. Everyone was fucking everyone. Even though you weren't.
That's great. That's what I say. Yeah, we're all celibate. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, but some people really adhered to his rules. One man said he was 28 years old before he had his first girlfriend. And he gets teary-eyed in the documentary. And he said, I found out there were 5 women who were told not to date me because it would hamper my spiritual development and growth.
That's sad.
It's terribly sad. The parts that break my heart the most are the people that were mostly men. I don't know if he ever, was intimate with the women. I hate to say intimate. If he ever traumatized or raped the women. But 2 men are very open more, but 2 men are very open about what happened. And they liken it to rape. They said, they were just laying there. And he was like, are you enjoying it? And they're like, yes. They virtually mirror what each other says. The one that is so odd to me is a man who's heterosexual. And he said, every Monday for 5 years, I was assaulted. And I didn't want it. All I wanted to do was find a path to be closer to God. It breaks my heart. And he's like, now he is with a girlfriend, but still, I guess it's that sort of ego that makes you think, not only do I want nubile, young, gay men near me, I somehow am going to entice nubile, young, straight men to think that being with me is some sort of gift.
Wow.
I know it really is heartbreaking. So he develops this group and it gets bigger, and most of them have outside jobs. Some of them are menial, but they each pay him $50 a week for a cleansing session. Now, he's smart enough to not call it therapy, because that could bring in legal ramifications later in a class action suit, or the people that have left,
or with licensing,
right?
State licensing,
exactly.
Laws.
The people that have left the group have looked into different ways, legally to bring him down, and it's a slippery slope because of the way he voiced things. And producer Mark is right. He does have certificates. I don't know if they're up to date or if he is licensed at all, but he began to realize things were weird. It's a difficult lifestyle in Los Angeles to keep up, paying for all of this. Everyone cooked, everyone cleaned. One woman said she worked a 40-hour-a-week job and looked back and realized she was working 40 hours a week doing service. I have a hard time with the word service. So many groups, good and bad, use that word, and it ignites something in you internally when someone says to you, "Will you be of service?" And absolutely. As if you're me, I'm a codependent people pleaser, and someone says the word service, and it's like it's a Pavlovian response. I'm like, yes. What can I do? How do I help you? How can let me bend down? Let me bend down. Can you walk on my back? Do you need? Is there a puddle? And that's a lot of people. Honestly, I don't know how I haven't been drawn into a cult. I really don't. I have been attempted to be recruited into many. And I'm just like, yeah, no, I don't. Yeah,
it's okay. Because you know what service is. Service is about serving others, not serving the group that you're in. That's what these groups want. When they say service, that means serve us because we serve the God, and which is just so convoluted. If you're performing service, you are doing something that's selfless for others, that is not the people that you're involved with, but people outside of you. Maybe that's it. And that's the difference. I mean, it's something that you do out of your own personal need to do it, not because you're being guilted into it, or compelled into it by some sort of draw that is service is when you do it because you want to do it.
Yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying, and I think we all like to see ourselves being selfless and doing something, for others. And sometimes you wonder if what you're doing is the right thing, but, if it helps someone else, then maybe you keep doing it. But, I find a lot of good things in a lot of groups, and a lot more shitty things in a lot of groups. And I have gone to many introductions. Like I said, when you live in Los Angeles, when you work in creative fields, you get, invited into these odd groups that everyone, this is the way. And the way they do it is to say, this has been so good for me, I think it would be helpful for you. And you're like, well, I'm up for looking at things that are helpful. I could use some help. Who couldn't? Really? Who couldn't really use some help? And there are good things to learn. Maybe even if it's just a shitty lesson about yourself, but you learn about yourself. I have, gone to Landmark Forum, which then became Landmark Education. It started as EST. I've been to many of those. I've been to, Scientology, introductions. And while they have some education and intelligence behind them, it always felt as if my soul was going to be taken over. So that is probably why I have never joined a group like this. But someone like Jaime Gomez is dangerous, and I hate to use that word, because according to a couple of the people that were in the group for decades, they said, this guy got into my head. And that's the thing. You can allow them to get into your head, and sometimes you can't stop them from getting into your head. But hopefully what you can do is at some point push them out of your head. And someone who is a hypnotherapist, who is a quote unquote therapist, that might be a little easier to get into some young creative seeker's mind. So Will Allen is brought into the group with his sister, and he brings in his other sister. So the 3 kids in this family are in this cult. Their parents are not happy. They're given different names, and their parents won't call them by those names. Their parents love them and stick by them. They, send postcards home from different parts of the world, which is unfortunate because I think Jaime Gomez had friends who traveled, and he would give them stacks of postcards and say, send these from, Europe to these people's families so they think they're traveling. I mean, it really was bizarrely calculated. And like I said, everyone performed service. Everyone, mostly service to Jaime, but, everyone learned to cook. Everyone cleaned. Everyone kept, you would all 8 people in an apartment, and one person would work and pay the rent. And, it was a commune. Everyone loved each other, and they really did. You can see the love for each other in this documentary in their eyes. They loved each other. It was like, I didn't have a family. This was my family. That's the other thing that I think cults prey on. You find not only the seekers, maybe the intelligent artists, but the people who didn't feel like they fit in their families. And how many of us feel like we didn't fit? I'm an only child, and I still didn't fit in my family. I'm the only one. My mom was an only child. I'm the only child of an only child, and I still didn't fit. I felt like I didn't fit in my community, in my house, in my school. A lot of us are different and unique. We're all unique. And some of us maybe just don't feel like we fit. And I think that's the people that they find, these people that are strong and narcissistic, and they find people to follow them. And here Will Allen gets out of film school, and after a few years talks the teacher, Michel, Jaime Gomez, into being kind of the official documentarian. At first, he didn't want to be filmed, and you would see him throwing things at Will when he was filming things, and, in a joking way. And that is something else that all of the members say, is that he had such a great sense of humor, and they all laughed. And when they finally got out of the group, they had stopped laughing. They had lost what that part of them was that they could laugh. So here's Jaime Gomez, the circus master, making everyone laugh and saying, oh, don't film that. But then he got to where he really enjoyed it. And you could see him becoming straighter. His spine was straighter, and he walked different. And yet, outwardly, while his, body was in such great shape, you could see the light going out of his eyes as the years went on. And I think that's what others didn't see who were in the group. And speaking of eyes, this is part of that Flim Flam man thing. He had some tricks. It's a Hindu technique where you press on someone's eyes really firmly and they see a light show. I mean, it's physiology. It isn't magic. But he would call it the knowing. And he would tell you when you were ready for the knowing. And that's what they all were grasping for. Am I ready? Can I have the gift? Can I have the knowing? And there was some film footage of him pressing on these poor people's eyes with his thumbs and, shaking his hands like he's having a little seizure, and then them falling to the side. It's very P.T. Barnum. And these people believed that they were being given a gift because they had a light show, underneath their closed eyes. And I'll tell you honestly, that's a migraine to me. I got to where I've had migraines for a very long time now, and I got to where I couldn't take another med, either over the counter or prescribed. Nothing really helped. I hate laying down. I hate it. I feel like I'm, surrendering or relinquishing my control. Maybe the migraine is my guru and I need to get away from my guru. But I tell producer Mark and my friends, I just surrender to the light show. And I lay down and shut my eyes, and the kaleidoscope of colors and lights and shit that goes on behind my eyelids when I have a migraine, when my synapses are misfiring or whatever's going on, it's the Hindu technique of the knowing. I never get done with a migraine feeling like I've learned anything new, except the parts of my body that hurt, my neck, my shoulders, my hair, my scalp, all of it hurts. That's really, I don't need to know that anymore. But it breaks my heart that did you ever do that as a kid, producer Mark, like press on your eyes and see lights?
Not that specifically, but I know what it is.
Yeah,
sure.
It's like it's a kid, such a juvenile, childlike thing to do, and to think that you can convince people that they are being given a spiritual holy gift.
Yeah,
it's heartbreaking. Yeah. It is very childlike. So I guess costs rise, and Michel Constant decides that he needs to move the group to a new place. And one of the members, who is a lovely man, has some money and finds a piece of property in Austin, Texas. So the group moves from Los Angeles to Austin. And Michel is a trained ballet dancer. Apparently he did work with the Oakland Ballet before becoming an unemployed actor in Los Angeles. And he, was actually, I think, a pretty good dancer from the film footage. And he would attract a few people who were also good dancers, men and women, and then make them rehearse for hours a day for a year, for a performance they did one time only for the group.
Oh, for God's sake.
He would have costumes, elaborate costumes made, and fabric shipped in from overseas, and costume designers come from Los Angeles and make these. Honest to God, there are probably two performances you see, just little bits, but one is the costumes are extraordinary, and it looks like cats on meth. It's people dancing around in feathers and fur, and I mean, it's really ornate. So he wants a dance studio built on the compound in Austin, and this young man, there's footage of him and a group of men in hard hats. It does look like maybe auditions for who were the guys that sang YMCA?
Yeah, Village People.
Village People. It looks like auditions for the Village People. All these gorgeous, well-built young men with no shirts. There's an Indian and a construction worker and a cop and a whatever, and they're all like building this stage, this theater for him. And then he would show up and see how it was going and say, there's too many windows on this side, tear it down. And the man who was sort of in charge said, and I did. I tore it down and started over.
Oh my God.
And he builds this beautiful compound. And then David Koresh. What happens in Waco makes a big impact on Michel. And what happens to religious leaders that are persecuted, they die. So he's like, no, we have to go right now. We have to leave right now. And they're like, what do you mean? He's like, pack up everything you can. We're leaving. And he flies to Oahu with a small group of people. Now, the part that breaks my heart about this is that Will Allen, the documentarian, shows the line of those who were not going, at least right away, lined up to film their feelings about the teacher. And it's all of these, devotees standing in line in front of a camera. I love you, teacher. You are my whole life. I wish I were going with you. I will join you soon. Blah, blah. You see these people and they are sincere. And it just...
Did he just abandon them there in Austin?
Well, yes and no. It's like we're taking a small group and then the rest of you can come later.
Did they keep that compound open in Austin?
No, it becomes abandoned.
Oh, for God's sake.
Yeah. I don't know if the man who bought the property ends up selling it. He does feature heavily in the documentary, but it becomes an abandoned place. So he goes to Oahu with a small group, and he ups the $50 a week fee for your hypnotherapy cleansing. That's how he can get away with it. He, ups it to $100 a week. So $100 a week, you get a private therapy session with him. And Will Allen says, and at this point, then he changes his name to Andreas. He's no longer Michel or Jaime Gomez. He is Andreas.
Okay. Just like I said, gets better and better.
Or worse and worse.
Yeah.
Yeah. He changes, the fee to $100 a week for a cleansing. And Will Allen says, the paradigm in this group is to just say yes. You just say yes all the time, and you don't oppose anything, and you feel like it's elevating your spirituality. You're just like, yes, I will do service. Yes, I am here for you. Yes, blah, blah, blah. And he said that starts to add up, and then your critical thinking is damaged, and you don't have any fight in you anymore. The fighter in you is the one who's like, no, I'm not gonna do, no, you can't tell me what to do.
Or even just to think, well, wait a minute, let me think about this for a minute, you know?
And I think that's an important point that Will makes, is that the fighter is beaten out of you, and not in a physical way. Well, maybe in a terribly sexual assault traumatic way, but it's more than that. It's psychologically and spiritually beaten out of you because you can't say no. There's nothing you can say no to. So they're in Hawaii, and in 2006, things happen. And I didn't know until I just kept digging and found out what exactly happened. You think, okay, someone sends an email to all of the members saying, this is what happened. This is not consensual. I have been sexually abused. You have too. You just don't know it. A lot of that. And what happened was a nostalgic member who had left was like, I miss my friends at Bootiefield. I miss the group. They're my family. They're not my friends. They're my family. And you know what it's like with family. They're your family for better or worse. You might not like them, but you love them. So he comes back and brings his wife into the group. So here are these, return apostates who come back in 2006, and he realizes something's different. He sees there's no light in Andreas's eyes anymore. He's not a teacher. He's made himself a master. And as a master, he's telling everyone what to do, like when to go to the bathroom. And he goes, he's not even himself anymore. He's a caricature. He has, like I said, his face is starting to change because he's having plastic surgery. He's always worn eyeliner and mascara and speedos. And everyone pretty much walks around. The men are shirtless and the women have bikinis on or bathing suits. He's also, he's a fat shamer. Nobody can have any sort of fat on their body. You work out and exercise all the time because that's, the path to God. And this apostate who comes back with his wife, he barged into one of his wife's cleansing session and tells Andreas, I don't think you're doing good here. I think you're hurting people. And Andreas is like, no, I don't know what you're talking about. But before he leaves and takes his wife, he sends a group email and says, this has happened. This has happened. You're not admitting it. I'm admitting it. Take a look at yourself. And it opened the floodgates. And the members were like, you know what? That happened. I'm admitting it. That happened. And there were little cracks in the statue of Andreas happening, because even Will Allen, his official documentarian who had, been used for sex and then been given an out, like maybe there were younger, more attractive young men brought into the group, so he wasn't being abused as often. He got a job in 2003 and he started saving money in case he ever decided to leave. He didn't think he would, but I love the fact that even in 2003, he's like, I need to have an escape plan. So he and his sisters got the hell out in 2006. And he was, one of the last of the group that had started to get out. But he got out and went back to try and mend, his broken family. His dad was older. He, one of these members, her father was sick and she made a plane reservation and Andreas said, you can't go. And she'd cancel it. And then she'd make another plane reservation. And he would say, you cannot connect back to that energy. You need to let him go. And she'd cancel it. And her father died and she didn't get to be with him. And at least Will Allen and his sisters got to be with their dad. He spent time being of service to his dad, who was elderly and in a wheelchair. His mother's still alive. You can see her interviewed, and she's beautiful. She is a beautiful older woman. And she said, I always hoped they would come back, but you have to let them be who they are. They're adults. I'm not going to call them by their names that man gave them, that monster gave them, but I'm going to welcome them home. They're my children. I'll love them forever. So they're still with their mom, which is a really good thing. One of their sisters takes full-time care of their mom. They've all kind of, tried to move on with their lives. They have relationships. They've had a couple of relationships. They waited a while before they had relationships. I mean, it's, and all of this is because this narcissist wanted a group of people, he wouldn't allow them to be physical with each other, but and this is conjecture, but, he was raised Catholic and he was gay and he would never be tested for AIDS and tell his acolytes, don't be tested for AIDS. If you even think of it, you create it in your mind and you'll give yourself the disease.
Well, that's good.
It's really nice, huh?
Yeah.
And he would, recruit these young, the one that's a little bit heartbreaking and hard to hear is that he kept a young man a virgin for 20 years and then took his virginity.
Oh, for God.
Only because he knew he would not get AIDS from him because he didn't want to wear a condom. But the man had never been with anyone, and he was a young man when he arrived, and he had never been with anyone, and so he knew he would be quote unquote safe.
Man.
Yeah, it becomes, a terrible, traumatic, I don't want to call it a sex cult, but I think it's, especially because he preaches, celibacy. But I think it's so fascinating that they were like, everyone was fucking everyone. It was, the joke amongst us was we called it Bootiefield, which is pretty fucking funny if you think about that. I mean, he would tell them in his own narcissistic way, you're pretty, but you need to be prettier. You need to get some cheek implants, and he would have them do it. So he'd see how it turns out, and then he would do it himself. And as you see him now, maybe he's in his 60s. I don't really know, but he's in Hawaii with a small group of acolytes, and his face is almost unrecognizable. It's that kind of Liberace look with, the pulled back eyes and the very kind of waxy lips.
It's hideous. It's a hideous look.
And the people who were in the group, who are natural, beautiful people, were like, he began to look odd, like awkward. One of these stories is pretty fascinating. There was this beautiful girl who I guess was very flat-chested. And, Will Allen is like, I don't understand even how they did this. We were together all the time. But somehow she slipped out and got surgery, and she went to a D cup. And, I would say, oh my gosh, you look so different. And she would go, oh, you know what? It was auto-suggestion. The teacher had me listen to an audio tape and my boobs got bigger.
Oh, jeez.
When he says to the beautiful woman who didn't get to see her father when he was dying, to say that she had cancer, which she did not have, so that Andreas could say he cured her.
Right.
Yeah. That's
it's just the usual shit that you see from these guys.
Yes. That's a really good way to put it. It's the usual shit, unfortunately, or the unusual shit. So at the end of the documentary, you see Will Allen taping surreptitiously, filming some groups in Hawaii. And it's like watching an odd, tiny sheep herder. So here's Andreas wandering around and, outside in strip malls and restaurants, and a group of very lost sheep behind him. And he doesn't look like he has a focus, but there's someone who opens a door for him, who lets him get out of the car, who closes the door after him, who opens a door to any restaurant or cafe they walk into, and they all just follow him. They're milling around behind him. And they're almost like protecting him.
It sounds like a field of zombies.
It is something. A little. It's a Buddhafield of zombies. That's exactly it. You're exactly right, producer Mark. So when the film actually premiered, when the documentary premiered at Sundance, Andreas sends some of his acolytes from Hawaii to be there. And they either, tape it with a phone, because Will Allen hears within a day, the teacher has seen your film. And then in another instance, he hears the teacher has heard your film. So he may have, had one of his acolytes tape it surreptitiously so that he could hear it. And his official statement on the film, Jaime Gomez, although at this point it's called the teacher's formal statement. It's heartbreaking to see how history has been rewritten. Holy Hell is not a documentary. Rather, it is a work of fiction designed to create drama, fear, and persecution. That is what sells. I'm saddened by this attempt to obscure the message of universal love and spiritual awakening. It's devastating to see these friends who were once so filled with love for the world be so angry. I wish them only the best and hold each one close to my heart. If any of my actions were a catalyst for their disharmony, I am truly sorry. May all beings find peace. Michel.
Yeah, go fuck yourself. How about that?
Yeah, you should go fuck yourself, Michel, instead of trying to fuck your, acolytes. So at the end of the documentary, a few of the ex-members sort of confront him on a beach in Oahu. And he's just standing there, like looking up at the sky and the sun in a very, detached kind of way. And they're like, "What are you doing?" And he's like, "I'm just being. I'm just being." He had a bodyguard, let's say, approach one of the ex-members who, is still in Hawaii, but is no longer in the group, and say, "If you don't stop this fucking film, I'm going to fucking kill you." In an alley, by the way. And his wife is 15 feet away screaming. It's this big dude. So the police find him, and the address he gives is the address where Andreas lives. So, it's like, did Andreas send him to do it? Yes. But would he say that? No. I'm sure he would say, "Oh, no, I did this on my own." But what Will and the group are now trying to do is to try and get people in Hawaii to see him for what he is. When the film made it into the Hawaii Film Festival in 2017 or 2018, they put flyers within a 3-mile radius around the compound that the teacher lives in now, in everyone's mailbox. And they mailed them to everyone's mailbox, saying, "This is what he is. This is who he is. This is the film festival. Come and check the film." They have videotape of some of his acolytes taking those flyers out of mailboxes and tearing them up, which is a federal offense because they were mailed.
Right.
So, maybe it's like, what was that, John Grisham, The Client or something?
Mm-hmm. The Firm.
The Firm. Maybe they can get them on something like that. Like, on the fact that if they can't get him on, sexually assaulting adults, non-consensual sex, maybe they can get him on a federal charge of mail tampering. But I love the creative way they're trying to get people to understand what's happening. And Will Allen believes, it's going to happen. He'll be run out of Hawaii. I mean, I guess we can hope.
Maybe.
I guess we can hope. So I guess all I really want to say about cults is that if you find a group that brings you peace and joy, that's great. But you don't need to be cleansed, because you are perfect the way you are. And more cowbell.
And remember, if you'd like to support this podcast, go to patreon.com/justthetipsters.